You, Destiny. We are connected through cooking here in the All South Kitchen with Trace Barnett, the bitter socialite, and making his delicious summer squash, which, by the way, you said it is the most requested?
The most requested dish that, you know, summer barbecues, any kind of gathering, it's the squash casserole that I'm asked to bring.
All right, how do we start?
So you're going to want to start with 5 to 6 cups of squash, which is roughly about 2 pounds.
Okay.
And I love, especially if you are shopping at a farmer's market or if you're growing it yourself, I prefer to like harvest them and buy them like this size, which I know looks small, but you know, feel of it and you can kind of feel that it's tender, it's not hard, and it's going to cook down quicker, and you're not going to have to worry. When you're casserole, you don't want to bite into a hard piece of squash.
Okay, that makes sense.
So you want a medium to large onion, chop it up, and then I do mine into rings, but you can also just loosely chop those. I've melted 4 tablespoons of butter in a skillet, and I just throw my squash and my onion right in that butter. There's just the best combo on earth is butter and squash.
All right, that's
and
true.
So I put a little bit of water in there and I cover it and I just cook those down. So think about your classic stewed squash, and that's the consistency we're looking for.
Okay.
We just don't want any onion that's kind of crunchy. We don't want a crunchy squash either. And so now let's add in the other components here. And all of these are just kitchen staples that you already have already. So a cup of mayonnaise and a cup of sour cream. And that's going to give us that really rich, creamy squash casserole that you're used to.
I'm starting to see the way this is coming together, why it's the most requested. But anyway, continue.
You know, anything with so much cheese and just, it's always a winner. So real quickly, you can do this if you have a cast iron skillet or a skillet that you can take from stovetop to oven. You can totally do that in the same total dish. But thing is, so the 2 eggs here, what I always like to do is break your eggs up in your bowl, go ahead beat those. If your squash is warm, take a little bit of that squash, just a couple slices, and go ahead and mix that together, because what that's going to do, it's going to temper our eggs so they're not necessarily scrambled eggs within our casserole. So throw your 2 eggs directly in there, and this is the fun part. So I use a combination of, I love just a good sharp cheddar, and I love Parmesan. Feel free to add any kind of cheese you have on hand. Gruyere is great, smoked Gouda. They're all wonderful. So you're going to need a cup each of those, and let's go ahead and put a couple dabs of hot sauce in there.
Oh, yeah.
I really like that little bit of a bite. And
I do too.
That vinegar flavor comes in good too.
Yep.
A little bit of granulated garlic. Now, I love using granulated garlic versus whole garlic in this, because squash casserole is not necessarily one of those things that you need to be crunching on garlic in. You know, it just doesn't lend itself here. I'm going to really switch and dive in. So stir all of that together. I'm going to give it a good stir before I add in our seasonings here, which are just super simple, and that's just the classic salt and pepper to taste. I love a good like a good pungent flavor in this of garlic, so I really go all in with the salt and the garlic. You know, the squash needs it here. And as you can see, it's a really light, fluffy batter here. And I'm going to throw in just a little fresh parsley. Now, this is the most important part of this whole recipe. And you can do this before you put your eggs in if you're a little bit worried about that. But just go ahead and give yourself a little taste, because whatever your squash casserole tastes like right now is what it's going to taste like when it's done. So if the flavor profile feels right, if the texture's right, it's ready to go.
The saltiness is right.
And this kind of consistency is exactly what we're looking for here. I like to use a rubber spatula just to kind of fold it all in together, so our squash that we've already cooked down, you know, doesn't turn into more mush or anything like that. And I'm just going to smooth that out. Now, this is a greased 9x13 casserole dish. And I have went ahead and greased that because it's just going to make it a little bit easier for cleanup. I cooked this in a 375-degree oven for around 30-35 minutes. Now, I love mine really nice and brown on top.
I was going to ask you about that. I do too, yeah.
And I like mine just a little thinner, because then you get that little crust on the bottom. Now, the squash casserole I used to do, I've altered my recipe just slightly. And so, optional, you can do a saltine cracker crust on top, which is just melting some butter, adding a few more seasonings directly on top. You can do a cornbread crust, you can do crumbled bacon, but just as simple and easy as I just top it with a little additional cheese.
Well, that's probably the smarter way to go. I know some folks will put some Ritz crackers on it, which is also delicious. But
and I love that, but you know, at the end of the day, I really just want the cheese and the squash to be like the shining star of this dish.
Totally get that.
And let me tell you, this thing is so easy to do, because you can make this up as is. You can pop this in the refrigerator, cover it, and bake it day of. Or you can totally bake it and then eat it later on in the day, because it's really good at room temperature. And not necessarily always a side. Put a side salad with it. full meal.
Beautiful. And squash, you know, they're plentiful right now because the harvest is great because of all the rain we've been
All
getting.
the rain.
So definitely get out, try this dish, and we'll have that recipe posted a little bit later today on our website and our app. You just go to the drop-down menu in the top left corner and go down to Good Day Alabama and connect it through cooking. It'll be there. Trace, thank you so much.
Don't want to miss it.
We'll be back to wrap things up.